Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday. It's a Sunday morning, April 14th. So I've got a packed list for today. So let's get into it with this day in history. We're going to start out in 1828. Noah Webster of Webster's Dictionary fame. He published his very first edition of the American Dictionary of the English Language. Caught some flack for it too, but I don't know why. Apparently, some people thought that he wasn't worthy of publishing an American Dictionary of the English Language. I don't know. On this day in 1865, President Lincoln was attending a play with his wife. This is kind of like in celebration of them winning the war, which really the war wasn't won yet. It was the Eastern Theater was sewed up, but there was still fighting in Kansas and Missouri area. And that's what was their Western Theater. So that was still going on, and it would still go on for several more months. But it was on this day that, while attending this play called My American Cousin, he would be shot by assassin John Wilkes Booth. Not died, but shot, as he lingered on through the night, and then he died in the wee hours of the morning, April 15th, which will be tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, a year later, we have a woman by the name of Anne Sullivan Macy. She would be born on this day in 1866. Now, she is significant in history because she was the teacher of Helen Keller. And anyone who knows who Helen Keller was, she was an American author who was born deaf and blind. So, she was pretty important. She's a staple to the disabled community for sure. So, on this day in 1866, she was Anne Sullivan Macy was born. So, on this day in 1902, the very first J.C. Penney store is open for business in Wyoming. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. So, in 1932, on this day, country crooner Loretta Lynn was born. And I mean, my parents were country, they were country music folks. They listened to country music, and so I grew up listening to the likes of Loretta Lynn, and I absolutely loved her music. And she was an amazing singer. So she was born on this day in 1932. On this day in 1939, John Steinbeck is the author of his book called The Grapes of Wrath. Excellent book, excellent story. It depicts life in Great Depression America, about a family who hits hard times. They lose their farm, so they move to California in search of a better life and in the hopes of finding work and, carrying on with their lives during the Great Depression. It was a great book. I read it in high school. So it was on this day in 1939 that book was published. And so, that's some good stuff there. We have some birthdays for this day. And on this day in 1941, baseball legend, but not a Hall of Famer because he was ousted out of baseball for gambling. Pete Rose was born on this day in 1941. Other birthdays. Sarah Michelle Gellar of Buffy the Vampire fame. She starred in the Buffy the Vampire TV series. She was born on this day in 1977. Okay. On this day in 1986, the U.S. led a airstrike, F-15s, based out of England. There was an airstrike led against Libya. They went on some coordinated attack where they bombed or airstrike multiple targets in Libya, killing some of the children of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. He barely escaped. Like, we almost nabbed him. And the reason why this attack, well, Muammar Gaddafi was engaging in wholesale terrorism, as in like sponsoring it, paying, allowing people to use his backyard for, their terrorist training purposes and the like, funding terrorism all across the world. If it was a terrorist group that wanted to strike out against the United States, he was that guy that would write him a blank check. Right? He hated us that much. At any rate, that airstrike happened on this day in 1986. I actually remember this, or rather, I remember hearing about it, and we missed him by that much. On the flip side, the silver lining to that incident was the fact that he had seen the error of his ways. For the most part, he never messed with the United States ever again. Well, at least not overtly anyway. I mean, I'm sure he was still probably funding terrorism on the down low. But ever since that airstrike, he knew not to mess with us ever again. And he didn't. In fact, to his credit, he called Saddam Hussein before we invaded Iraq to remove Saddam from power. He called Saddam Hussein up and said, "Don't mess with these guys. They're giving you an out. Take the out. Go and live in exile somewhere. It's better to live, than to be captured and killed," which is what eventually happened to him too. But yeah, it was on this day in 1986 that the airstrike happened, and Muammar Gaddafi ceased messing with the United States. And it is on this day in 2014. This is kind of sad. In Nigeria, there is I would call them a terrorist group, Boko Haram. They kidnapped 275 girls from a boarding school in Nigeria. And I don't know whatever happened to those girls. I don't know if any of them were ever rescued or what the deal was, but I do remember that it was a pretty big deal because it was one of those things that once Boko Haram got a hold of these girls, the reality is that they were more or less lost forever. They were probably used in the human trafficking, human slaves, sex trafficking, that kind of thing, or they became sex slaves to the guerrilla fighters themselves. Who knows what that crazy madman, did with them. It's just kind of a sad situation altogether, and I think they're still around. I don't know that, I'd have to look that up, I suppose, but I don't know if Boko Haram has ever been taken out, but, if a world coalition decided that they wanted to throw together a bunch of special forces and send them on down there and just send these animals to their maker. I mean, they would be doing the world a favor. Last on the list is on this day, April 14th, 2021, which wasn't that long ago. It was only 3 years ago. 3 years ago today, Bernie Madoff dies in prison. Now, Bernie Madoff, if you don't know, he was the guy who had this great Ponzi scheme, and he literally stole millions of dollars from investors, and he funneled all that money into offshore accounts, and he made bank. And the thing is, like, even when he got caught and he was put on trial and he was convicted and sent to prison, and basically it was a life sentence, even though he got caught and all that, it's like not all of the money was ever recovered. And that's the unfortunate thing about it, is that he still has people's money. He's dead now. He's been dead for 3 years. So that's kind of unfortunate there. But that wraps up our day in history for this April 14th, today being 2024. So we will convene again tomorrow on April 15th, tax day. We'll talk about that. Obviously, we'll talk about Lincoln succumbing to his fatal wound at the hands of John Wilkes Booth. So, that's it for today. Tune back in tomorrow, and we'll do it all over again. All right? So, have a blessed day, and take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.